Now it's Representative Darrell Issa from California for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, before we get into the tougher part of this, I want to thank you for the effort that has gone on by the men and women of both the State Department and the Department of Defense, and a lot of independent actions that occurred to try to help get people out in the aftermath of the withdrawal. I would not be doing my job, though, if I didn't ask some tough questions. One of them is up here on this board, and it's pretty straightforward. A response I received from the State Department said to my staff when we asked about continued work to get people out, it said, make contingency plans to leave when it is safe to do so. That do not rely on U.S. government assistance. How do we square the fact that in an official response that I waited weeks for, that we do not have any assurance for assistance, but that when people get out, typically they are lauded by the State Department as success stories? That includes an 80-year-old couple that was announced to have gotten out when, in fact, we saw no real assistance by the State Department, had to find out there was a non-government flight and get these 2 American citizens onto that flight, and we still have a number of others. So in a nutshell, how do I explain don't rely on the United States? Do we or do we not rely on the United States of America for blue passport holder American citizens who want to get out?
The answer to that is yes, absolutely. And could you tell me, because I'm sorry, I can't see it clearly from here, when and to whom that statement was made?
We'll give it to your staff so that you get it without it being fully disclosed, but it is a correspondence.
And Congressman, I'd really welcome following up with you, with your team, with your staff to make sure that we are following up on that particular request. I've got here, because I really want to express deep appreciation to members of Congress, this committee. I have here a very lengthy document of all of the inquiries that we've received from HVAC, from members of HVAC on people who've come to you seeking assistance, all of which has been factored into our databases, our information, our efforts. But if someone is not getting the response they need, please come back to us and let me know, and we'd be very happy to work with you on that. Thank you.
We'll do that. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Now, if I can quickly go through a few dates and a few statements. On July 8th, President Biden was asked if he listened to the intelligence assessment that the Afghan government was likely to collapse. He answered, that is not true. They are not, they did not reach that conclusion. In other words, the IC hadn't reached that conclusion. I believe that we'll find that as of July 8th, the President misspoke. The President also said the likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely. 2 days later, on July 10th, the Taliban was reported to have 85% of the country. Then on August 12th, the Wall Street Journal reported that on July 13th, you received an urgent dissent memo from 23 U.S. Embassy personnel in Kabul warning that the advances of the Taliban and the rapid collapse of Afghanistan. Your spokesman said you read every memo sent to you from the Dissent channel. So if you do, then you knew that, in fact, a major portion of people in the embassy believed that they were going to quickly overrun. On August 18th, President Biden said the intelligence community did not say back in June or July that, in fact, this was going to collapse like it did. But the embassy told you, or at least a great many, in July that it would. The question really is, how do we regain confidence in the State Department and its spokespeople, yourself included, and the President, if, in fact, we cannot square what we receive, members of Congress, both publicly and privately, that indicate some of those statements that I just read, including ones by the President, are not supported by the facts?
Thank you. As you know from tracking this as well, throughout the year, assessments were made of the resilience of the Afghan government, the Afghan security forces, and the possibility of the Taliban taking over the country. And this was typically done in a series of different scenarios, worst, mid-case, best-case scenarios. In the worst-case scenarios throughout the spring, I think it's fair to say that the general assessment was that the government and security forces would be able to hold on to the country well into next year, 2022. At some point in July, there was an assessment that it was more likely than not that that time frame was down to the end of the year. And then, of course, as things fully unraveled in August, that changed. To my knowledge, Congressman, no one predicted the unraveling before our forces and embassy left Afghanistan on August 31st. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, has said, nothing I or anyone else saw indicated a collapse of the government and the security forces in 11 days. The Director of National Intelligence has said in the days leading up to the Taliban takeover, intelligence agencies did not say collapse was imminent. This unfolded more quickly than we anticipated, including in the intelligence community. And there are a number of other conclusory statements of that kind that I can share with you. With regard to the so-called Dissent channel cable, it's something I'm immensely proud of. It's a tradition that we have, and you're right. I read every such cable, I respond to it, I factor it into my own thinking and actions. And that cable did not predict the collapse of the government or security forces before our departure. It was very focused and rightly focused on the work we were doing to try to get Afghans at risk out of the country and pressing to speed up that effort. As it happens, a number of the things that were suggested in that very important cable were things that we were in the process of doing. The very next day, I think the cable came in on the 13th of July. The 14th, we launched Operation Allies Refuge, which of course had been in train for some time, as well as the 24/7 task force to help those in the SIV program get out and even to relocate them, which is not part of the program. So that was a very important cable. I'm grateful for it and grateful that we have a process at the State Department where people can clearly express their views and differences on policy or recommendations on policy. That's usually important.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize Representative Bill Keating of Massachusetts, who's the chair of the subcommittee on Europe.